Welcome back. The privacy battle waging between Apple and the U.S. Justice Department took an unexpected pause this week after justice officials hinted they, with the help of an Israeli firm, might have figured out how to get into that unlocked iPhones and iPhones in general without Apple's help. But the big question remains, should the government even be allowed to do so? To discuss this tricky legal issue, we welcome back to this segment media professor at Western Connecticut State University, Jackie Guzda. Also joining us this go-around to weigh in on the business aspect of all of this is the person they call America's Money Answers Man, Jordan Goodman. And Matty Kahn is back. He's the president and CEO of cybersecurity firm Infotech Solutions. And in our D.C. bureau is Vince Crisler. He is the CEO and founder of Dark Cubed. Gentlemen, ladies, welcome. Let's discuss the business aspect of this. Apple says, hey, this is important that we have this security. Our customers depend on this, and you can't get it, period.
I agree with them. I think they say it's a one-off, the FBI. This is not a one-off. There's a whole bunch of iPhones that have been captured in all kinds of criminal cases.
150 or so.
That they want. That's just the beginning.
Yeah.
So it is opening a Pandora's box. And I think people have to feel secure that their privacy is maintained. So I think actually Apple's been winning the PR war on this thing since it first came out. I mean, Trump is against it, but everybody else thinks this is a good idea to have some security. So yes, it's a problem that the criminals can use that to hide themselves, but overall having cybersecurity be secure is, I think, the bigger priority.
Well, we discussed this several weeks ago, and someone sitting in that chair, another expert said, well, that's not to stop another firm somewhere in the world to figure this out and help the Justice Department, or how do you monitor
but
this?
You can't force Apple to do it, to break its own codes and use their own resources to do this. I just don't think it's the right thing to do, and I don't think they're going to end up doing it. I don't think a judge is going to say you have to spend resources to break your own codes.
Jackie, on the political realm, Donald Trump getting a lot of play saying, hey, we should be able to get this information. It's cybersecurity, it's terrorism, we need to know.
Oh, sure, because the Donald is running on strength, and he's going to get rid of those terrorists. But, I think there's two sides to this issue, and I think both sides are right. I think that Apple should not have to go in and break its code, and so all of our encryption is out there in the open. And also, look, Loretta Lynch, she was on that committee, and she was like, we need this information to stop terrorism.
Right, you said both sides are right. What is the solution, Matty?
I
know you're not a lawyer.
I stated many times ago that this debate is completely unnecessary. This is completely politicized.
Why is that? Why do you think that?
Because from a technology point of view, long before we went to an Israeli company, and I know a lot of Israeli companies who can do that, John McAfee went on TV and says, give me 21 days, I'll chew my shoe if I don't break it. And John McAfee, I believe him, he would do it. Okay, he built the McAfee antivirus, he's a brilliant guy. Technology-wise, we don't have an issue. We have an issue on trust, and we have an issue of security. Security, we're talking private security, protecting the Fourth Amendment from unreasonable seizure and so on, and people knowing that you can't invade them. And we have national security. Let's keep something in perspective with all that battle for privacy. If tomorrow morning, God forbid, we have a repetition of 9/11, and these terrorists who would do that, think about September 12, 2001. Do you think that if, God forbid, never to repeat, 3,000 Americans would die tomorrow in an attack, do you think anybody, when the government wants the code for the iPhones, would say privacy? We know how fast public opinion changes it.
Right.
Nobody would argue that. So are we talking about number of casualties here to give that number? The whole debate is irrelevant from a logical point of view.
Let me hold you there. We have Vince Crisler. He is the CEO, founder of Dark Cubed. He's in our Washington bureau. And Vince, I'm kind of curious, why is this so hard to figure out? There are people in the Justice Department, tech whizzes, who couldn't figure this one out. Why is this such a problem?
Well, Director Comey just came out recently and said, that he's happy to say that not all the technical creativity exists in the government. I think what's fascinating as a technologist, we're living in a really complex world, and this debate is really complex. This debate is blending technology, it's blending policy, it's blending legal issues, and the debate actually going on right now is three different issues. There's the encryption issue, there's the encryption of unlocking the phone, and then there's the PR battle that's being waged. And so I think you have multiple sides of this argument talking as loud as they possibly can across this chasm. And as was said earlier, there is no solution, there is no answer to these questions. Both sides are probably right. But the solution is continuing the dialogue and finding a way to let the technologists and the legal folks and the policy folks actually have a real discussion around these issues.
And Jordan Goodman, what stops somebody after they figure out how to get into this, somebody at Apple, to create another way in which you can't get in? I mean,
Right.
these are smart guys and women as well.
Right. Well, I think people, when they buy a phone, want to feel secure.
Yeah.
That's part of what they're selling. And it's not only Apple, it's Samsung, it's everybody else. Security, your entire life is on your phone. Or your contacts, or your emails. People want to feel secure about that. They don't want to feel that Big Brother, and particularly after Edward Snowden came out and said, all of what the NSA is doing, people feel very paranoid. Is the government watching me? This is one area you feel secure. I think you should remain secure.
What are the shareholders thinking as this battle goes on?
This is a real advantage that Apple has to protect its rights and its privacy and its patents.
Would you venture to say the shareholders support Mr. Cook?
Very much so. And he spoke at their meeting, and they had the introduction of new products, and he was like, this is what we're going to do. So I think he has complete support. And most of Silicon Valley has come out in favor of him as well.
Until we have another 9/11. So in that sense, you're both right. I think the problem is with the laws. Technology has just zoomed up so quickly, right, that we're having
We don't
this
have a
discussion.
technology issue here. And that's
I'm not saying a technology
no,
issue.
I back you up on that. The technology is used as an instrument here. We don't have a technology. It's used to politicize situation. It's used to back up big egos. It used to do a lot of things. But if anybody thinks that Apple is not being compromised, if anybody thinks there are people out there that have not figured this out already, there's got to be a great sense of naivete
All right.
around there.
Vince Crisler in Washington, D.C., where do you fall on this issue? For Apple, for the Justice Department?
So I think they're both right. I think we want a future where our law enforcement, our intelligence community is working as hard as they can to do their mission and solve the problems they're trying to solve. And I think we want companies like Apple that fight to defend our rights. And I think we want a stage where we can discuss these issues and figure out what matters. If you think about the iPhone, it was released in 2007. So if we're trying to talk about legislation or regulation to fix these issues, those are slow-moving instruments to solve technology problems that are moving at the speed of light. And so the only thing we can do moving forward is continue this dialogue and discussion.
The Chinese
Vince, before we do that, Vince, I've talked to 10 people on this, and they've said the same thing you have. There are arguments on both sides, and they make sense. But if you're the CEO of
Absolutely.
Apple, what do you say?
My responsibility is to the shareholders, and so I say no. Now, you do need to keep in mind this is the All Writs Act, 1789, but Apple's complied with this. I think I heard, a prosecutor said 70 times in the past. So this isn't a new issue, but the debate is new, and that's what's exciting about the issue to me is that we're actually having this debate.
And why now? Let's bring it back to the panel here. Why now?
Well, the San Bernardino situation where
Of
they have the
course,
phone.
but it's happened before, and they've been able to open the door to this and give law enforcement some information. Why?
Happened
why-
about
I don't
70
see how the situation is going to be.
So-
The Chinese just passed a law enforcing companies there to participate with the government. Apple will not have that luxury in China that they have here. This is the biggest market. Do you think they will not comply in China? They will. And now if we bring a third party to break the code, how did that behoove Apple now that the whole world knows that Apple can be penetrated by another company? I think this was an unnecessary battle. We are creating a conflict that was unnecessary.
So you think Apple should have said, we'll take care of this one,
It
we'll
should
let
have
you
done
look
be
at it.
under the table. Nobody
Quietly.
should have known.
But they
Do you know how many
can't.
things are done under the table that we, the public, don't know about?
But the Justice Department brought this to light because Apple said no. and
We
the
got to
Justice-
ego fight. We got into two
But we have
egos.
a legal. We also have a legal fight.
We always have a legal fight. We can
That's
talk and
the
have in 5 minutes a
area.
legal fight.
However,
That's the country we live in, right?
We are a country of laws, and
That's
that's
right.
where we have to fight
But
it
we didn't
out.
need that
Laws
fight.
could be
So,
changed.
if
Yeah.
I'll tell you which law
Yes.
is that 1780 whatever,
89
89 law,
of
the
writs,
All
right.
Writs law, which is probably written with a
is it?
quill
Quill,
pen
right?
at the time. And so what's happening is that we have a legislature that has got to come up to speed with the technology.
We also have gridlock. We also have gridlock down
Right.
there, and this decision
Right
is
now,
There is talk
hopefully-
about doing a blue ribbon commission, actually, that would potentially come up with a
Well, I
solution.
find it interesting because Vince also agreed with you. The commitment is to the shareholders.
Right.
That's it.
No, but
And-
the commitment
and I find
is-
that interesting because the shareholders obviously are the investors and they want to keep this secret, but don't they have a sense of responsibility with regard to security in the
They've been
United
helping
States?
for a
But
long
when
time.
a third party opens
Yeah.
it tomorrow, how did that behoove the shareholders? When a third party, an Israeli company or John McAfee, breaks that code tomorrow and lets the whole world know your security in Apple can be broken, how did that behoove Apple to bring it up to the surface in order not to force them. I agree, they shouldn't be forced. By the way, I'm with you on that one. Somebody else was brought and said, oh, you're great, we didn't betray you. We did not de-encrypt the code we did for you. But guess what? You can give it to anybody else to do. How does that behoove Apple in the long run?
Before we lose the satellite, we're going to give Vince Crisler one last word about this with regard to this issue. Again, you fall on behalf of Apple, if you were the CEO of Apple at least. But is there any solution to this?
Yeah, I think part of your question of the why now is this is a slightly different request. This isn't the FBI saying we want to hand you the phone and get the data back. This is saying we want you to create a tool, a backdoor into this. And then once you create that backdoor, you're creating significant problems. So I think Apple has demonstrated the ability to work with the government in the past, and they should work with the government in national security cases as best they can. But this request is a little bit different, and that nuance really matters. There is no such thing as a safe backdoor in these systems.
All right, Vince Crisler, CEO, founder of Darkcube, thank you very much. We'll take it back to the panel. We just have a few minutes left. Boy, again, I've heard it again and again. Great arguments on both sides. It really is almost a 50-50 split here. Something is going to happen. Either this Israeli firm is going to figure it out and it's a non-issue, or Apple's going to comply, or Apple's not going to comply.
Apple's not going to comply easily. They're going to have to be forced to do so.
And they have lots of money and lots of lawyers, and they could probably drag this out for years if they have to.
It's not going to be quick. And legislation's not going to be quick either.
That's right. So what we have to do is bring the legislation up and then take each case on a case-by-case basis. These are terrorists who committed an act and they are dead. That's way different
but
from
once the government wins one, they're just
iPhone.
going to use that as a precedent and say, we got this one, this is the same as
the
one
government
before.
is going to get what it wants.
You think so?
Whether we know about it or not, I guarantee you the government gets
rather
what
not
it wants.
know about it.
Yeah, and we all rather not know about it. Let's us do our little thing, our shebang out there. But let me tell you, the government's going to know about it if it doesn't already know about it.
You make an interesting point, because a lot of things happen under the radar. That
Most of the stuff happens
Oh my God,
under the
it's a
radar.
conspiracy theory.
It's not a
I would say
conspiracy.
80% of this stuff happens under the
Most
radar.
hackers will tell you they can do it. Do you really think there's so many people out there saying in the world they can do it, and really the government is sitting there quiet, the FBI, and says, oh, I know you can do it, but don't do this because we're in a legal battle. They
No
already got it.
question with that, but we don't throw all the laws out the window
It's a great
because of
thing to
that.
keep the media busy, but as I said, the whole discussion is
How about all
politically.
the other phones that have not been broken? Why hasn't the government gone and done that?
Well, they need a real reason. You can't do it over a drug dealer. It's not, but something that San Bernardino terrorist. I hope never happens. But if we need one more act in order, not only Apple, but a few other things are going with the election in this country to happen, to push everything to some extreme.
All right, Jordan, we have 30 seconds. If we all know this, and it could have been done in very quietly, what is Mr. Cook doing? Is this just posturing for
Well,
his...
to some extent, he wants to show he's looking up for the customers and shareholders, and that's his responsibility. His responsibility is not to be with the FBI. So I think he's doing the right thing for the position he's in.
Okay, gentlemen, lady, thank you very much. When we come back on Fresh Outlook, we are going to discuss some other topics. We're going to look at the president's visit to Cuba and what that means for the world and the nation. We'll be right back.